Rotation in Guild Wars 2 PvP is the movement around the map between fights and objectives, because each map has a primary objective of standing inside 3 nodes to capture and defend to generate points over time, and then a secondary objective. This means that at any given point there can be 3 to 5 objectives to contest on a map at once. Since it is required that you not only get to 500 points, but also that you get it before the enemy team, rotation around the map and getting as much value out of every objective as possible is necessary to winning. With 5 players per team, this can mean that getting as much value as possible requires splitting up in different combinations and sizes depending on the objective and which enemy or enemies that you meet there. Because Guild Wars 2 is an RPG with various classes and ways to play, certain roles and archetypes have become common. You can group them all into 4 basic categories. There are the DPS, who will just deal tons of damage, and their damage has a wide radius, meaning that they can scale up in larger fights. They'll also have the potential to break through enemy defenses and pressure them heavily. However, they are often slow and predictable, leaving them vulnerable in situations not in their favor. DPS will want to hang around supports in larger fights, because supports will try to sustain fights by healing or getting enemies off of their allies. They are usually low in damage and easy to focus, so they need allies around them to get things done or to fend off enemies. However, they are the most essential role in larger fights because they enable their team in so many ways. Unlike the DPS and support, duelists are more oriented around smaller fights. They are self-sufficient and can focus a single enemy well, but in larger fights, they have less presence for their team. Duelists are very important because of how efficient they are at contesting objectives alone, and because your team must split up at some point. Duelists allow teams to go for multiple objectives with little investment. Roamers are the playmakers or the gankers. They have lots of burst damage and mobility, but they lack the survivability of the duelist or the output of a DPS. They often require good timing or coordination to get kills because they can run out of steam. But basically, because of how quickly they get things done in ideal situations, they allow teams to capture multiple objectives by moving from one to the next very quickly. So immediately you can see which roles are better in which situations. Supports and DPS like to be in larger fights, and duelists and roamers like to be in smaller fights. Supports and duelists like to be defensive or stationary to get the value out of their builds or to ensure their team's point generation, while DPS and roamers like to be aggressive and progress the map by getting the enemy away from those objectives either through kills or pressuring them off. However, not all plays can be made in ideal situations, and you may be forced to sometimes take bad matchups and make inefficient rotations. But what matters more than the build or role you are playing is how you play it. Not all builds are stuck to a strict role or have scripted rotations. Often you will play many different roles in a match, but most builds are optimized toward a role. So your understanding of the entire system of roles and rotations will allow you to overcome these difficult situations or matches where you aren't provided ideal environment for your build or role. You can perform any role on any class, but some classes will have better options for playing that role. And some builds can play multiple roles or more specific roles than the 4 general ones, but just learning these will allow you to go from there. Team compositions may be stronger or weaker against a specific playstyle or other combinations of compositions, so it's usually best to have a good balance of these roles within your team to avoid being easily countered. For example, if the enemy team is all roamers and duelists, then you just play for 2 points and stick together so that they can't pick off targets alone. If the enemy team is all supports and DPS, then it's awkward for them to rotate because they can't split up into odd numbers, where the DPS will be without support or the support will be without damage. Also, certain maps and objectives on those maps will favor different comps and roles or require those roles to react differently. the orientation of the nodes, what kind of terrain is there or isn't there. Also, certain maps and objectives on those maps will favor different comps and roles or require those roles to react differently. And the secondary objective will determine how each role should play. Because standing on a node constricts your movement and makes you an easier target, fights will often go on and off terrain depending on who is at an advantage or disadvantage. Duelists will often use terrain to survive outnumbered, or DPS will use it to give themselves sustain while their supports are not there. Supports will use terrain to maintain their cooldowns so that they can save them for their allies. In general, terrain is a counter to roamers as it slows down fights, but they can use it too. One of the most important things to learn is how to recognize the situation and when you're in a bad matchup, and how to play when that is the case. In other words, you want to rotate to the right place, but when that isn't possible, you need to minimize the value that the enemy gets out of it by either stalling for time or just not dying. More solutions will become available to you when you focus on surviving rather than trying to go toe-to-toe in every matchup. Check out my how to carry video, which will be linked below for that. For now, we're going to be talking about the support role, how to build it, and how to play it. Supports focus on sustaining fights and enable the other roles, more importantly the DPS, to play aggressively. In Guild Wars 2, you don't need to be a healer to be a support, but often support builds will want to heal to be optimal. You can support your allies with boons, resurrection, or even control effects. Many non-support builds can still support their allies, and some support builds can even support through non-conventional means. For the most part, a support build will sacrifice a lot of their personal survivability to provide benefits to their allies. Because of this, they scale up very well in larger fights. They sacrifice some of their own survivability that a duelist or roamer may take in stun breaks, so that they can support their allies. This makes them easy to focus alone, but hard to focus with their team around. Supports are very different from bunkers. A bunker is more selfish around their sustain, and they're not really useful in coordinated play because they're only good at standing on nodes. Of course, standing on nodes is useful, but because enemies can just leave a bunker alone, it makes them much worse in higher level games where people don't make the mistake of over-investing into them. Supports and duelists can still hold nodes to an extent while providing support or damage to their team. So really, a support shouldn't tunnel vision on holding nodes, but rather keeping their team alive so that their teammates can win the fights and then get control of the nodes. Here are some basic priorities for a support when rotating. The first one is keep your team alive, then it's don't die, then it's stand on node, and then finally it's get kills. Notice how the life of the support is placed below the life of their team. They're very close in value because these two are very related. If your team dies, then you will die as a support. If you die, then your team will die as a support. So you need to find a balance of safe positioning and aggressive peeling to keep yourself and your team alive. If you play too safely and get split from your team, then they'll die. If you peel too aggressively and you take too much pressure, you may lose your life while you're out of cooldowns. Learning the ranges of your support abilities and staying near the threshold is very important to conserving your cooldowns as a support. If you're blowing all your cooldowns to heal yourself when your allies don't need it because you're standing too close to them, then you won't have the cooldowns available when your allies do need them. This means that supports who are very squishy like Tempest don't need it because you're standing too close to them. Then you won't have the cooldowns available when your allies do need them. This means that supports who are very squishy like Tempest should have good positioning and decently ranged support so they can focus on providing their team the support rather than themselves. Supports that are very tanky like Guardians have lots of close range support that they share, so they often take pressure when trying to support their allies. Move into range to peel for your allies when you have the cooldowns to do so, and move out when you don't. Next on the priorities is to stand on node, or essentially to contest the objective. Obviously you want to be doing this if you can do so while keeping your team alive at the same time. However, in many cases, Standing on the node will get you killed, so you should go for the higher priority of staying alive rather than die for the node, because then your team dies while you're dead. Also, if your team is not in range of the node so that you can support them while contesting it, get off the node and provide your heals to them, because as mentioned before, if they die, then so will you if you're outnumbered. Once you've used all your cooldowns to keep them alive, you can actually peel for them by standing on the node. The logic in this is that if the enemy wants to contest the node while you're on it, they need to stop chasing your ally off the node. If you have already provided your support to your ally, there isn't much else you can do but make the enemy choose between contesting the node and chasing your ally. Nodes are still very important, but of course having a team is more important as a support. If you are in an advantageous situation and the enemy kites using terrain, the DPS or roamers should chase kills off node while the support caps the node. Lastly, there is a priority to get kills. As a support, you don't provide too much to getting kills, but you can still CC or give cover conditions. If your team isn't in danger of dying and the nearby node is captured, a support can go for kills, but like I said, it has to be the very last thing. If you're in a fight that is guaranteed to win, even if you weren't there, but your duelist is losing their 1v1 on the other side of the map, you can choose to travel all the way over there to give them some heals to potentially swing the fight in their favor. However, consider the amount of value it will give your team to support the 1v1. You won't be providing much damage, so you won't really end the 1v1. It could be useless healing you're giving if it's a hard losing matchup for them anyways. Also, in the time it takes to travel to your duelist on the other side of the map, the fight you are in may change in nature to a more dangerous encounter, and while you are absent, your more valuable DPS may die. So you want to prioritize your DPS classes over your duelists and roamers, and play for kills with your DPS even if they don't really need your support most of the time, because your time spent supporting them is still much more valuable. Conquest is an extremely complicated PvP mode, so these priorities should not be followed in every single situation, but they're a good guideline for quick decision making in the heat of battle. Now, let's talk about how to build a support and what makes a support build strong. Most supports will take the Menders amulet because it has the highest healing power stat allocation and therefore supports your team the best. Martial amulet also has the same amount of healing and some condition damage if you want that, but because it has no vitality, it's a very risky option. Sage and Avatar have less healing power and more damage, so generally duelists will use those. Besides healing power, supports will want to provide their team with condition cleanse and boon. You can greatly reduce the amount of healing you need to do if you can cleanse conditions. Because healing in Guild Wars 2 relies on proximity, more so than targeting, you will need to consider the ranges and animations of your healing abilities. If you won't be able to land your heal on someone because they're kiting around too much, try telling your allies to kite around terrain rather than kiting in open fields so it's easier to support them. But if you're too slow to land your abilities on your team to heal them, then all the healing and cleanse you invested in your build is useless. Roamers will often abuse these slow rotations of supports to get kills on the enemy team before the supports can arrive. You want to have some mobility to react to the enemy's rotations and to land your skills, otherwise the enemy team will just leave every fight you enter. You often will rotate counter to the enemy roamers as a support because while they are trying to progress kills around the map, you're trying to prevent that. Having some sort of instant res utility or burst healing ability rather than just slow heals over time will help to react to these situations as well when you enter a fight late due to a team rotating around your support. Not only do you have to look at and react to your team's health and buff bars as a support, but also looking at the animations of your enemy. Peeling enemies off your allies is just as important as support. CC is the main form of peeling, but conditions like blind or weakness, or even cripple can hinder your enemy's ability to chase or kill your team. Well-timed boons like protection and Aegis can be great for reducing the damage your team takes, so you don't have to heal as much. Also, reducing damage can be very important against burst, which can counter healing by killing your team before you can even react to it. If your team dies instantly, then you can't really heal that. So in that way, having lots of mitigation is good too, but a support build should not only go for support. In some situations, support is not even needed, but damage is almost always needed. Having a support build with some aggressive potential to lock down the target or even provide some supplemental damage to help your team to focus targets can be very useful. So the first build that I'm going to go over is a support Firebrand, and I'll be using the Menders amulet with the Rune of Speed. The reason for this is because even though Guardians have ports and stuff, I'm not really using them on this build because I'm sacrificing pretty much everything to support my team. So I still need mobility to be able to keep up with my team and provide them support with like my Mace skills or my mantra, which you need to be pretty close range. So also you get a lot of disengage potential and rotational ability so that the enemy can't just rotate around you because of the added movement speed that you get when you have swiftness. So you get swiftness from your staff 3, you get it from some of your tome abilities, and when you have swiftness you'll just be moving faster. So I just like that for the mobility. You're gonna have cleansing energy on both your weapons so that you can survive better, which means that you'll be able to help your team if you're alive. The healing on this build comes from the Aegis that you give out to your allies. So where do you get Aegis? You get Aegis from your Shield 4, you get it from your Mace 3 whenever you proc it, so if someone hits into your block, and then it'll give out Aegis to nearby allies. And you will also get Aegis from your heal skill, which you can use in a small radius to allies nearby. And then your Tome F3 will give it on use and on the 5 skill, which is really strong as well. So you have a lot of healing from Aegis. You'll also have healing from Battle Presence. So whenever you're in 600 range of your allies, you will give out your F2 healing passive from Virtue of Resolve, and your Virtue of Resolve heals about like 180 per second. You'll also give out 15% endurance regeneration to your allies that are within range of your Virtue of Resolve. So that's not amazing because Vigor is 50%, so 15% isn't really that close, but it's something for sure. And more dodges means more mitigation for your team. And so you'll be healing allies passively near you. You'll be healing them when you actively give them Aegis, and you can also heal them with your Tome F2, and you can just use your 4 skill or your 1 skill for the mega healing. Other ways that you can heal include the Empower on your staff 4, that'll heal per pulse, but you have to stand still, so you gotta be a little bit mindful of that. And also your Dodge roll will heal nearby allies at the end of it, so you can actually dodge on top of your allies and that will heal them. So you can sacrifice some of your sustain and self-survivability to give it to your allies. And then you're going to have a lot of cleanse as well on this build, because in your F2, whenever you just enter it from Absolute Resolution, you'll cleanse 3 conditions from all nearby allies. And then your 5 in your F2 tome will convert 2 conditions into boons, and your 2 skill will cleanse 1 condition. You can also gain a condition cleanse for you and your allies by blasting with your staff 2 into your staff 3 or any of your other symbols, because a blast will give area cleanse finisher. You also have Save Yourselves, which will pull all conditions from nearby allies onto yourself, so it's like a full Condi cleanse for your allies, which is really nice. And you will also have the Virtue of Courage, which can give you resistance. So it's not really cleanse, but it can delay the need for cleanse. So that's pretty good as well. And then even if like you don't have cleanse for yourself and you like save yourselves from all your allies, and then you have like a ton of conditions on you and you don't have cleanse, you can just go invulnerable after the resistance runs out from save yourselves. So you have a lot of ways to remove conditions from your allies on this build, which is important. And there's also a lot of CC on this build with Shield of Absorption. you have the Staff 5, which is a terrain sort of. It'll create a line which enemies can't really pass through. You also have the F1 tome, which will give a ranged pull. And then you've also got the Taunt and the F3. So there's a lot of ways for you to CC the enemy and help your team to get kills. But you don't really do that much damage on this build because you can't really catch people with a mace or a staff. So it is pretty low on the damage, but you do have Signet of Mercy. So if you do kind of get out rotated and you come to a fight late, you can get the Signet of Mercy off and revive one of your allies. You'll also have Stand Your Ground, which gives stability, which is one of the best support skills in the game. So giving out stability to allies is very important. And that's pretty much it. So in this match, you'll see that I have a Thief and a Mesmer. So I've got 2 Roamers, and then I have a Ranger and a Berserker. So I guess it's like 2 Roamers and 2 Duelists. I don't really have any hard DPS on this team, and I'm playing a support, so it's kind of weird, but we'll see how it works out. I get stealth from my Thief, and I blast with my Staff 2, and then we're going into the mid, but it looks like our team is chasing the kill on the Ranger up top. So I'm just trying to stall. I see that the enemy Guardian goes up to support his team over at the top of the clock tower. So I try to support from below with a little bit of cleanse, and they get bannered from the enemy support. So they're kind of just chasing each other for kills, and I can't really keep up because I'm a slow support. So I'm kind of just waiting for my team to arrive. I'm going to try to CC this Guardian here so that I can get the decap, and I don't get the decap, so that's kind of bad. I want to leave and try to play with my team, so I'm kind of over investing into this node. I see that my Mesmer is down over here, so I give myself stability so that my Mercy Signet lands 100%, and I'm just giving out support resistance to my Mesmer, and I give the stability I think right before they get CC'd there, so that's pretty nice. And basically I want to be playing around my Mirage because the Mirage is probably my highest damage class on my team, so supporting them is probably pretty good. Even though they're a roamer, not really a DPS, they're the closest thing to it. So while they chase that kill, I can't really contribute to it, so I'm just capping the node. I'm looking at my teammates' health bars here. I see that my Thief has got a lot of burns on them, so I'm trying to support them off node, but they, right before I'm going to cleanse them, they go for a Shadow Step Stomp, and yeah, they die to the burn ticks there. I just used my Signet of Mercy, and I can't really res that through 3 people cleaving, so that's 100% dead. But there's 3 people here, and I don't want to go back to defend mid. I want to try to like bait them off of mid, but the Guardian doesn't fall for that and runs straight toward the mid, so I have to fight them on node, which constrains my movement, and I'm just kind of stalling until my team arrive. My Mesmer is now here, and I have my F3 tome to give them immediate presence and resistance so that they can pretty much go ham. So the Guardian chases my Mesmer off. I'm kind of looking at the map right now, but I can't really get to home and revive my Ranger, so I'm just holding mid for now. My Mesmer does have a kill here, so I'm going to support them from afar with the staff and just keep an eye on mid because I don't want to get decapped, and I also don't want to lose my Mesmer, so I'm just watching out for that. So our Ranger is respawning and our Thief is actually getting a kill here. I want to make sure that my Thief doesn't die, so I blow my shouts when they get in range. Not really the best usage of the shouts to get the Condi Cleanse from Pure Voice, but there's really nothing else for me to use that on right now anyways, so it's gonna be good enough to help my team survive. And I just want to make it as easy as possible for my Thief to do their job, because as a Thief, as a roamer in general, you don't really have a lot of sustain, so keeping them from using a lot of their cooldowns allows them to play more aggressively. So yeah, it is really important there. And my Thief is now helping me to get a kill here, but we don't really need that. But we also kind of own far, and we have our warrior watching that, So we're pretty content with just holding these 2 nodes. My thief, I'm looking at it right now, it seems to need a little bit of support, so I probably should be getting off the node right now instead of just, because I mean there's no potential of this warrior 1v1 ending because one is a support and one's a duelist. I mean, it looks like the other warrior is low, but they could, yeah, I need to be leaving right now and going to far. So when a team fight erupts like you see going on at far, I need to be heading there immediately. But my warrior tries to go for the decap on home. I think they're trying to decide whether they want to be here or to relinquish me of holding mid. But we're actually doing okay on far because for whatever reason they got the res on our thief. And now I'm just trying to heal my mesmer here. I use my staff 4 for healing. And I'm going to go into my tome here and give out as much healing as possible. This isn't really a decided match, so I am playing very safe at this point. So I use my elite here to get my tomes back, just so I can give my team the support that they need. And I'm looking at the mesmer right now, so I want to find my mesmer and heal them. So I come off the node here and heal them preemptively, give them a little bit of might, and I see that the enemy ranger goes into mid. So in reality, I shouldn't be going here because my team really needs me in the team fight more than they need anyone else. But the thing is also, no one on my team really wants to play the 1v1 role and watch the back nodes that we have. So it's kind of unfortunate. I should probably be far, but also someone probably should be at mid instead of me. So it's kind of like the question of, do you go for something that is unideal but what you need, or do you go for something that's ideal that you kind of don't want to overinvest in? And as you can see, we're losing the team fight at far. So this is a good example of a mistake, because even though, yeah, we would have lost mid if I went to far and helped my team, but now they died at far and we lost far, and now that's probably going to have consequences elsewhere on the map because they lost that fight, so now they're going to come to mid. And I'm already in a really bad matchup because this Condi Ranger, like, there's a lot of pressure on the node. So at any point, if they come from far and try to +1 me, I could instantly die. But luckily, they don't. We kind of get lucky this match, and my mesmer comes in, and they're playing very well. They're doing their job. And I'm just trying to support and hold nodes because it just kind of feels like my team doesn't want to do that. So I get feared here because I used all my cooldowns to survive that 1v1. So that's kind of unfortunate. I do see my mesmer is low and I want to go find them. So I see them now. I'm trying to get to them, but I'm getting CC spammed. The mesmer plays very well and runs toward their support. So that's another thing you want to do when playing with a support on your team is if you need healing, look for where your support is. And I'm going to heal them a little bit more here before they go into far. I really want to not be going into mid again and holding nodes. I want to be doing my job. So I'm healing the Steve here, cleansing them as well. And I have 5 burn on me, so I'm being careful. I use my save yourselves there just for the Condi cleanse from Pure Voice, but might not have been necessary. I get Fear Mead off the node, and I see that my Mesmer needs heals again, so I'm looking for them right now. I head straight towards them, and they're kind of heading straight towards me. And I'm going to use my symbol there and my staff 4, which will give them a little bit of healing. And yeah, we're going to just basically support whoever is doing damage on our team. So now I want to go into the team fight. This is the more important rotation. I'm kind of not really rotating very well this entire match. So I target the Thief because I know that they can port in downstate, but they decide not to port anyways. So this is going to be a difficult res. The thing is, I can use my Signet of Mercy, but you really never know when a pug is going to use their port ability in downstate, so you may have a reluctance to do so, or with a Thief on your team. Now I'm supporting the Mesmer, and I'm in my Tome, so we got plenty of support going on. I have my Elite skill if I do need more Tomes, so we're playing it pretty safe right now. And I know that my warrior, while yeah, this is kind of the situation they want to be in, which is a 1v2, I give them a little bit of support first and actually peel the enemy Hollowsmith off of that so that my warrior is in a 1v1 on their node, which is really good. They want to be in that situation. So the enemy team eventually leaves because they realize that my warrior is getting a lot of value off of that. And now a team fight is probably going to erupt on mid because we've stalemated them at far node. So my thief here needs some cleanse. I immediately use all my shouts to heal them up, give them some symbols and Aegis and protection. And now my team is going to need to cleave these down bodies. I see that there's one more person there that we have to watch out for, so I'm just cleaving as hard as I can, and we get that down. My Mesmer downs again, so I just kind of play as safely as possible with my Signet there, but now my Mesmer is really starting to get low, so I have to hand res them while they cleave. I use my tome there a little bit preemptively, but it's better to be safe than to be sorry. You always kind of want to use your tomes preemptively because they take such a long time to get their healing out. A lot of Firebrand players will kind of like die with all their cooldowns up because they're waiting for the right moment to use it, but it's kind of like it's better to use it and waste it than to not use it at all, right? So because then you at least get some value from it. And then we're now at far. We just need to hold this. There's pretty much no kill potential on their team because they have a support and a kind of like dueler slash DPS like from a hollow, and then I'm a support, and then we have, you know, sort of like a dueler. So yeah, and we also have 3 here, so yeah, we just need to hold this at this point because we'll win with just 1 node. So I'm just staying at far. My Mesmer and Thief though are not having a good time, so I get off the node and I try to heal my Mesmer. They're, as you can see, they're moving faster than me, and this is why I really like the speed runes here. And yeah, my Mesmer is getting chased by the Guardian here. I just use my Aegis when I get in melee range to support them, and I don't really need to worry about my duelers on the node over there because they're duelers. That's what they're supposed to do. Whereas my Mesmer is going to need a lot more support because they don't really have that much sustain. So that's pretty much going to be the match. We're going to AFK here for the win. And yeah, that is support Firebrand. And let's go to the next build. And the next build I'm going to be showing is a Fire Tempest. This is a very Condi countering build because every time you give out an aura, you will cleanse conditions, and your auras also heal. So this is kind of like all revolving around auras. So whenever you see like an aura, that means that it's giving out healing, it's giving out cleansing, and it's also going to be giving out regen, which is even more healing, and vigor, which means dodges, right? So like the Guardian build that we just went over was only 15% endurance regeneration given to allies. This is going to give 50%, so it's going to give a little bit of the mitigation through allowing players more choice when to dodge, but the Guardian build had more mitigation through active like Aegis and protection. So this build is a lot squishier, but it has a little bit more CC and damage as a result. So I take the Mender amulet, which is just, you know, staple for support builds. I have the Traveler rune. This is because you want the movement speed, pretty much. That's pretty much it. You gain a little bit of healing power from the plus 16 to all stats and stuff like that, and boon duration, but it's really that you want the movement speed because you don't really get swiftness on this build otherwise, and you don't really want to take this trait even though the stability is pretty good because the regen is just too good because it gives so much healing. The vigor is so good. So if you don't have any swiftness application on yourself, it basically means that you'll never support anyone because everyone's just going to run out of you, as I'm saying. So you need the mobility to keep up with your team, and also if you're being chased, you don't want to die, so being able to escape from focus is pretty important too. I take the energy sigil just for more survivability, and absorption. So This is a pretty aggressive kind of support build because you have a lot of CCs with the Shocking Aura and the Air attunement in general, and whenever you interrupt a foe, you will steal a boon from them. And whenever someone hits you when you have Shocking Aura, that will interrupt their attack because they're still in the aftercast of the animation when they hit you. So you'll be taking out a lot of boons because you're giving out so many auras. So how do you get the healing? It's mostly from the auras, right, and water attunement, but where are all of your auras at? So whenever you go into fire attunement in combat, that will give a fire aura to you. Now whenever you gain any kind of aura, you will share that aura in a 600 radius to nearby allies. So basically any aura you give is given to your allies, and it's going to cleanse, give healing, give regen and vigor. So it's a lot of synergy with this build for supporting your allies. And you're going to gain that fire aura whenever you enter into fire attunement. You're going to gain an aura from Shocking Aura, so that's 2 auras. And then you're going to have fire shield. And mind you, you also have 2 cleanse whenever you detonate an aura. So if I use fire shield, that'll be 1 cleanse, and then fire shield to transmute, that's a double cleanse for me and my allies. So a lot of cleanse on this build. And you also get aura passively from Soothing Ice. You will get an aura passively from Elemental Bastion, and you will get an aura whenever you finish an overload cast. You'll also get a fire aura whenever you enter the overload fire. So not just when you finish casting it, but when you start casting it, because it doesn't really say this anywhere, but all overloads will proc the minor trait, so the middle minor trait here, if the corresponding attunement has a trait in your build. So if I have fire and water, then my fire attunement and my water attunement will proc these traits when I start casting the overload. So yeah, you'll get another cleanse there, more auras because your auras heal. You can also get an aura from using your fire 3 and then your earth 3, because when you do a leap through a fire field, that will give you a fire aura, which will be shared to your allies. Also give out lots of burning, which will blind, so you can peel for your allies, not just through CCs of, like tornado. You'll have your Shocking Aura, which you can share to your allies and give stun aura whenever you get hit. You have the longest single target stun in the game that's unblockable from Gale, so you can really help your team to be aggressive on targets. It's the most aggressive support, I would say. And you'll also be able to cleanse yourself with Magnetic Wave and go invulnerable with Obsidian Flesh. So you have a lot of self-survivability as well. And you also have Swirling Winds, which will give your team projectile blocks. So there's so much utility. It's one of the most powerful support builds. And you also have Renewal of Air or whatever attunement you're in for the instant revive. So there's just a lot of support. You can rotate pretty quickly if you have the Rune of the Traveler or some kind of swiftness, and you just have tons of presence in fights and a lot of healing. The only issue is this build is kind of squishy and easy to focus, so you have to be very careful because you don't have a lot of active mitigation. You just have the invulnerability, you have the blinds, and then you just have a little bit of protection when you overload into Earth. So you got to be careful on this build and have really good positioning. But mind you, the water attunement will give you a lot of ability to heal your allies from long range, because whenever you're in water attunement, you'll give Soothing Mist to your allies as well. And just being within 600 range of them, you can give out the auras, you can give out the, the Soothing Mist aura to your allies, and you'll also heal with Cone of Cold if you just breathe on your allies. So there's a lot of healing and a lot of utility. It's one of my favorite supports in the game because it's just so rewarding when you play it well. Here's a match on the Fire Tempest build. I am actually going to cap home because we actually have 2 supports on this team. So we have a dueler who just died instantly so they have like what, like 2 roamers there I see, and they're coming towards me if you look on the map. So we have 2 supports, 1 DPS, well we have 2 DPS and 1 dueler. So the duelist is dead, and now I'm going to be 1v2 versus 2 kind of roamers, so I have to be very careful here. I need to get off the node immediately. I have my shocking aura out now. I'm going to have to go invulnerable. So when my dueler revives, okay, actually I'm just full dead. So, but when my dueler revives, I would hopefully get some counter pressure from them, but I didn't kite fast enough and that got me killed. So yeah, that's kind of like one thing that I made a huge mistake on, is not getting off the node as soon as possible. Now obviously it's not an ideal situation to even be capping home as a support, but since we have 2 supports, then it's kind of like, well, who caps home then, right? So it's probably the support. Here I'm going to get a really nice revive on my ally here, and we're not really too far behind in this match, so we're doing fine. And I give out my auras, and then I go towards the node because I don't want them to fully cap the node, because I'm here to stall fights, which means that if I stall a fight on their node, well then they're getting a lot of value out of it. But because my warrior feels very pressured, they got off the node as well. But we do get a kill here, so that's pretty nice. My warrior gets a nice CC there, and we cleave the down body. And this is kind of like a good matchup for us because we're versus a DPS and a roamer, and we're a dueler and a support. So we're just too tanky for the roamer and the DPS to really survive because they just get out sustained, right? So those are the kind of like weird matchups based on roles there, but in general, yeah, the more sustained a comp is and the larger the fight is, will favor the more sustainable comp. So you want to have burst in small scale situations. Anyways, we're here at mid, giving out shocking aura to my team and doing a little bit of CC. I see that home is probably going to get decapped because I don't see the enemy team pushing into mid. But actually it was a mistake because, well, actually you don't really know that because, yeah, we have sides. So yeah, the thief is coming here to decap. So I think it was probably a better play to come here than to stay in mid and try to stall that fight. So I'm just going to hold the node here, and I need to support my team, but I also don't want to get decapped. So it's kind of like I'm playing the role of a duelist right now, and 1v1ing a thief is very not ideal. I'd rather my teammates to be here with me. So trying to survive here, and I use my tornado there, and I think the thief steal is off cooldown soon, so I have to be very careful. I dodge around here a little bit and use some shocking aura to survive. I'm just using terrain. My teammate is able to stand on the node now, so that's pretty good, so I can kite off the node, and I'm just going to give them a little bit of support here. My teammate dies and I have to go for the res here, but I get headshotted or stolen into, so that gets interrupted, and now we're in an outnumbered situation. I port out of that dragon's maw, but I get bursted down. So yeah, our warrior is doing a good job here of surviving while outnumbered. They actually end up going into mid, but they get chased down and killed. I actually get the full cap while in down state, which is kind of interesting. So this is actually going to end up being a good situation because the enemy team is kind of like tunnel visioning. They're not really rotating, and they're going for beast instead of node, which questionable play, even though they have the rolling support to do it. And yeah, so we're ahead, but they've got the beast buff, and our whole team kind of just wiped at mid, right, because we got snowballed out from home. So we're in a dangerous situation. So instead of trying to go to mid, which is already lost, I'm just staying here with my teammate, and we're just trying to get this kill here on the renegade so that we can maybe get something out of it. So at this point, I'm going to try to CC them. They have the stability, and we're now in a 2v2, but this is a very favorable 2v2 because it's a DPS and a support, our comp, versus a kind of like a I would say this is a bunker scrapper, which doesn't really do much, and then a DPS. or maybe a DPS roamer. You never really know because Revenant just does everything. But now we're 2v3, so I have to kite off node with my teammate. We're playing very safe, and even though the Renegade is going to play very aggressively, the rest of their team isn't, so they kind of have to back off or they can get counter pressured. But here I recognize that we probably want to go to a side node, so I'm immediately rushing in towards home to try to save my teammate. They are getting chased by the burn DH, and I just give out a little bit of, well, I don't give any support to my teammate there, but I don't need to because I'm trying to contest the node, which will basically peel from my ally. And this allows them to resustain, and we can just cap this node. Now we have Far, so our duelist is doing very well now because they're splitting the enemy team. Because the enemy team is a bunch of roamers and DPS, so they want to be kind of like staying together and getting kills and being very aggressive. Whereas our comp kind of wants to have our duelist kind of like at Far, and then we kind of stay together and stop the roamers and DPS in our team fight. So I'm going to try to prevent this decap at home. This is like a really bad 2v2 because it's double support versus roamer DPS, so we don't really have the damage to prevent them from really free casting on us. They're like two of the most aggressive roles in the game, so you have to be careful here as two supports. But since Tempest is kind of like a aggressive support, we can pressure a little bit. I'm just trying to give out as much cleanse as possible, not really worrying about ourselves as much. But now I'm getting the thief on me. I instantly invulnerability, and I'm trying to kite around in unpredictable ways so that I don't, just get W keyed on. I stun break with my water overload, and I'm just trying to use terrain. I get stolen into, and I'm just trying to survive while my teammate decides whether or not they want to support me. I think they're trying to tunnel vision for the node a little bit too hard here, but I go down and I actually get revived by the I think that was the mercy signet, but now they go down trying to mercy signet me, so it's gonna be a very rough situation because I am outnumbered very hard, and the enemy owns the node, so I can't really do anything here. So just me trying to survive and not really much to support here. My DPS does come in now though, so this is a good situation for me now because we want to be 2v2 or 2v3 as support DPS because the Necro is a DPS class usually. So I give out the Earth Aura with the Earth Attunement Overload, and now I have a lot of burn on me, so I have to immediately invulnerability with my Mistform, and I'm just trying to cleanse with my Water Attunement here. I overload and my Necro actually goes into Shroud, so I can't heal them, so we're just going to move on from that. And yeah, that's another important thing to know is as a support, you can't heal any Necro who is in Shroud, so you want to save your heals for when they leave Shroud. And get the res there with Signet of Mercy, and now we're just using as much healing as possible with the Aura spam, the Fire Attunement, and then use both the auras that way. And yeah, just pretty much full healed my team there. And at this point I realize, yeah, home is not really working, so I go in towards mid. I'm getting chased by the thief, but I do have my Revenant here, which is another DPS class, so I can support them and allow them to go ham on the bunker scrapper there. And then I'm going to go into Far because I'm realizing that playing a 3-point comp here is not working out because they have more, they have more mobility than us. So I decide to go into Far, but then I realize that Far is okay, so I go back to mid, and yeah, I just blew my blink there for no reason, but at this point we are just stalling on the map. So I see the Bunker Scrapper is fighting my Spellbreaker, which is actually a good matchup for the Spellbreaker, so I don't really need to go there. But then the Thief is probably going to go plus that, So I see on the map the thief is in stealth, and yeah, he appears over here. So I'm just gonna support my Spellbreaker, give out the shocking aura, and yeah, they're pretty much fine now because I'm giving them healing. Thief can't really do anything, but now it's like a 3v3, so I'm just trying my hardest to support. I get headshot on my Overload Water, which is not very good, but my warrior pops off and they do pretty good. They get a kill on the thief, so yeah, that's pretty good. That's going to prevent a lot of the damage that is done to us. And I can just cleave with the air overload, or I can just do tornado if I want it as well. And yeah, this is a really good situation for us now because we've stayed alive in a 2v3 and we got a kill, so we prevented them from rotating out really. So at this point we won't really have too much cleave. I'm just trying to CC and I'm getting a CC'd instead. But yeah, this kind of like 2v2 with a duelist is one of the more survivable 2v2s in the game. So if you do see a support and a duelist on a node together, because Spellbreaker is a duelist pretty much, you don't really want to be trying to take that over unless you've got overwhelming odds. So yeah, that's a pretty safe comp there when we own the node already. Into mid, we're trying to peel for our team here and stop them from snowballing. Get a nice little knock there into a flame burst. But yeah, we've got like a trip cap going on now, and the score, which used to be pretty close, is now starting to go straight ahead for our favor. So we have our support on mid, we have our duelist and DPS on far, and then a DPS on home. The DPS at home is probably dead, but I want to play around the win condition more so than my role. And the win condition right now is to hold one node. So I'm going to try to support the place that has the most likelihood of surviving. And that's going to be mid because we have two supports there. So I'm staying here and we're going to immediately cancel that so we don't get decapped. Yeah, because you can't contest the node while you're in Obsidian Flesh. Now I get off the node and I try to support from above with my auras. And I put down my projectile reflect or block, and at this point, yeah, if they go for me, then my other support can just stand on the node and hold it, and there's really not enough time for them to play around us getting off the node like that. They have to go for whatever's on the node. So yeah, that forces the win, and that's pretty much Tempest. The next build I'm going to be showing is a healing scrapper. So this is getting a little bit into the off-meta territory. So let's just go over the build immediately. So you've got the Menders amulet, which is pretty standard for all supports. Then there's the Rune of the Herald. I'm using Pistol Shield with Cleansing Energy. And the traits are going to revolve around protection. So similarly to the Tempest build where your auras gave you the cleansing and healing and regen, the Scrapper build revolves around protection. So whenever you give protection to an ally, you cleanse a condition from them. And whenever you cleanse a condition from an ally, you'll convert it into a boon. So whenever you cleanse a condition from an ally, it can give you a lot of synergy and sustain. For example, if you cleanse vulnerability, you'll get protection, and then that'll cleanse another condition. So there's a lot of synergy on this build with cleansing and protection. And whenever you cleanse a condition from an ally, you'll give them regen. So whenever you give out protection, that will prevent allies from taking a lot of power damage, but you'll also cleanse them of conditions and give them boons and heal them. So it's kind of like the protection does everything. So you want to know where the protection is on this build so that you can get a lot of the healing out. So protection is going to be from your heal skill, and you're also going to have Rune of the Herald give the same effect. So whenever you use your heal skill, you're going to give out 2 instances of protection, and Your bandage self, which is your tool belt skill that's from your med kit, is going to act as your heal skill because this is a kit, so you can't just use your med kit and then get the effect. So you have to, it's a little bit weird of an interaction, but you have to use your bandage self to get your protection for nearby allies. So that's 2 Condi cleanse there, and 2 instances of protection, and then your heal skill will also just cleanse another instance. So that's 3 Condi cleanse to nearby allies when you use your bandage self, and that'll give out some regen. And you've also got protection whenever you use your shield skills. So just using your shield nearby allies will give them protection and cleanse them. So that's really important. And then you have the non-protection giving skills, which will just give out regen and other boons. So how you give out other cleanses are, you have your medkit. So medkit gives out a cleansing field, which is also a water field. So usually you want to use 3 into 5, and you'll blast that water field with the infusion bomb, and it'll give out a lot of swiftness, vigor, and regen as well. So you have like this 3 into 5, and then you can just use 4, which is a nice little heal there. And then you have the elixir gun, which has the super elixir, which will cleanse 1 condition and give an impact heal. Then you have acid bomb, which will combo finisher blast, and that can be really good with your water fields to give out a little bit more healing, or you can use it with your light field to give more cleanse, which will give more boons and regen. So you can use it either way. And then you have fumigate, which is just going to pulse cleanse in front of you. So you get a lot of cleanse from fumigate. It's 5 condition cleanse if they're standing in the whole thing. So then you have the mortar kit, which will give out just a water field, and it'll also give you a blind field and a chill field and a poison field. So there's a lot of utility on this build, and because you're using triple kit, the issue with the build is that you have so many skills that you kind of run out of time to use them if the fights are extremely bursty. So you want to stick to using your high value skills first, which are your protection skills. So shield skills, your heal skill, and you'll want to use your lower value ones that don't give out protection later when, you know, the initial impact has gone by. So you're also going to have a little bit of self-sustain with this build with protection injection, and also your bandage self is kind of interesting because even though, yeah, you do use this for your allies because it gives out protection and nearby allies, it gives you a lot of healing on a 17-second cooldown. That's 6,000 healing on a 17-second cooldown. So what you can actually do is if your teammates need healing, but you don't, you just save your bandage self and don't use it. And you do have the choice to sacrifice your self healing to give them protection. But for the most part, you can get your healing from other areas and you won't need to waste your self healing. So you can kind of like think, well, I can play away from my team and then just heal them from afar with my long range heals. And then if they focus me, then I can use bandage self on myself. So the independence of your self healing and your allied healing is really nice on this build. But as I said, you have so many different skills that give healing out, and it takes a while for that to come out, that you kind of get countered by burst damage and lockdown. But you do have stability for your allies because of the defense field, which is a 3 stack of stability for 6 seconds, which is pretty good. It's a long cooldown, but you do have stun breaks with the Elixir S, which you can make plays with, and the Elixir Gun tool belt skill. So you'll see that my team here is very heavily oriented around DPS. We have 2 Dragon Hunters, a Chrono, which is kind of like a DPS roamer, and then a Renegade, which is usually a DPS roamer too. So there's a lot of damage on our team, and because of that, this is a really good match for me because as a support, I have a lot of places that I can be. Now my ally immediately goes down. I have to stability to get through this wall, and I use the function gyro to get the res here. And yeah, the enemy team is trebbing, so I want to really try to support my team while also not standing in the middle of the node. I put down my poison for the downstate body, but my function gyro is off cooldown, so I have to stealth res here. And I'm going to go for the, yeah, I get the res, and then I'm going to just put down all of my AoE on the node from far. My function gyro is coming up now, so it's nice that I have multiple ways to get reses here because my allies are really going down here. So I put the fumigate down, which is going to cleanse my allies, and poison the down body, which is really important because down bodies get healed less when they have poison on them, so it's harder to res. So I can actually contribute to downstate situations with my poison from the mortar or from fumigate. So I'm going to need to heal my allies there with some elixir gun, and just going to use my medkit auto attack there and just dodge the trebuchet there and then heal this guy so he can cap the node. And then as soon as I see that he's fine, I'm going to leave and try to, basically what I'm doing here is I'm zoning them off of mid. So like if they want to prevent me from capping far, they need to go stay there, which means that they can't push in the mid. But as soon as they do push in the mid, I come back and I'm supporting my renegade. There is a knockback rev here as well, so I kind of don't want to be here because they're a bunker and I'm a support, so I get value from playing with my team and they get value from just knocking me off the node. So I'm going to put down some heals here for my team. My chrono is pretty low, so I'm going to heal them with the med kit there, and they have a lot of regen, so I'm going to let them go for now. I'm going to go to mid and try to heal my ally here. So I see that there's a bunch of condies on them, so I'm trying to heal them and cleanse them. I use my I use a lot of my skills here because that's what you gotta do on this class. But yeah, I think I went to go res my DH there, but they died before I could get in there, and then now my renegade is down, so I have to go for the res there, but I wasn't paying attention because I was looking at my DH, so I just let two of my allies die separately because I wasn't on the one that was currently being killed at the time. So that's kind of how like your teammates can get killed when you're a support, is that they're splitting up too much. So you kind of want to be in like larger fights so that it's easier for you to support your team. So yeah, dealing with all these roamers on the enemy team is really becoming an issue for me because even though we have lots of people that I can support on my team, it's not always the person who needs a support at the time. So I'm going to push into far with my renegade. We're not going, yeah, because this is a bunker rev. We don't want to invest in that fight. We want to kill the rest of their team first. So I give some swiftness here with the med kit, and now I'm just going to cleanse my team here with the shield skills. I'm going to stun nearby enemies by using the shield 5, and I'm going to cleanse here with fumigate. As you can see, my teammates have no conditions on them now, and they all have a lot of boons because I've cleansed them all. So I actually go into far because I know that that's a bunker rev of some sort, and I can't really contribute to the kill that much, so I'm going to decap far, and if my team gets the kill on mid, well, that's fine, but I really have nothing to do with that. So if my team gets a kill at mid, then they're going to push into far where I've already got the decap, so we can fight on a decap node rather than fighting on the enemy node. But at this point, the enemy team starts to rotate back into mid, and I make the mistake of staying at far. I should be going back to mid and healing them. So in this situation, you can see on the map, I'm kind of like holding and bunkering a node versus another bunker, but I have way more useful places that I could be. But my team finally rotates in far, so now this is a 2v2. They're a little bit low, so I have to go really heavy on the healing early on. So I can actually use my gyro here. Yeah, use the gyro, stun break that, and now my team is dead. I'm going to elixir S so I don't get CC'd while rezzing, and I didn't even have to use my function gyro there. So we still have function gyro if they go down. I just put down my elixirs, give out some Condi Cleanse, and yeah, at this point I think we're pretty okay because we're versus a bunker and a DPS, so they really can't do enough damage to get the kill here. And I'm just going to try to keep healing here. There's not really too many conditions going out, so all the cleanse that I have is kind of being wasted. So just putting out blind and chill now, and yeah, the protection's out, so we're doing pretty fine. I put down my elixir here, and yeah, there's just so much support going out from this build, it never really stops. So I knocked them off the node there, and my chrono is now in the mix. So we want to be focusing a target with our team. I blind so that they can't fight back, and yeah, the chrono puts down a really nice gravity well, and we get the big cleave here. I put down some poison just in case, and now I want to support my chrono because they're about to die. So I need to get off the node and res my chrono now. So I put down the healing, and then I actually don't go for the res, but then I see that the enemy team lich forms, so I really need to go for the res now. I put down the projectile block so that the lich form can't, keep DPSing the down body, and then we have to go back in for the cleave from afar. So I put down the poison with the poison mortar from afar, and yeah, that allows us to stop the res. And now we want to go back into mid to the team fight to support our team. So I don't want to be at far anymore, because that's like, if I cap that, then I'm going to be forced to watch it because they have respawns. So really I want to go into mid. I want to go to where there are the most amount of allies so that my build gets the most value. So now I see that the respawns are occurring, so I want to go back into far because there's going to be at least 2 people at far, which means that my DH is going to be 1v2. So I want to make that a 2v2 because that's a really good matchup for us, because support plus DPS is just really good. We're actually 2v3 now, so yeah, this is going to be a little bit dangerous. So I'm just throwing out all my abilities one by one so that I can heal as fast as possible. I get out a lot of cleanse there, which is really nice, and I'm just trying to survive on the node. And because they all stack up and take damage, they get burned to death, and we actually get 2 downs in a 2v3, which is really nice. So I'm just doing some damage here, cleansing, making sure no one dies, and put down my acid bomb there just to cleave a little bit. And yeah, at this point we pretty much won a 2v3 because the support, they really couldn't do enough damage to get through the support, and they didn't really have any sustain to survive the DPS of the Dragon Hunter. So it's as I said, it's a really good comp of DPS plus support in like a 2v2. And so that's a very good rotation for us to be in a 2v2 because we have so much synergy with each other. So yeah, I mean, we pretty much won the game at this point. I want to go for this res here, so I use my function gyro and elixir S res to try to stall, but yeah, they're not going to get res there. There's way too much cleave, and at this point I have to be very careful. I'm trying to stand on the node, but once I run out of cooldowns, I'm definitely going to get off. But my chrono comes in, does a massive gravity well, and we are pretty good right now. Now they're lich forming, which is really dangerous, so I have to stealth myself and yeah, just get out of there, because you can see that the lich was focusing me. I'm going to use the function gyro to res my chrono, and now we are surviving long enough to last through that lich form. And yeah, I'm just going to do some Condi Cleanse here. At this point, we pretty much won the game, and I will probably go back into far just to secure the win. So yeah, that's pretty much how the Scrapper works. Now I know what you're thinking. I did say that every class can play every role, so you're going to say, show me a support thief build. Well, here you go. Here is a support thief build. You're going to be taking the Mender amulet with the Rune of the Mesmer. You're going to have a lot of days on this build, so you have the headshot, you have sleight of hand, and you also have the sigil of savagery, which will allow you to get even more stun and daze duration on your Basilisk Venom. It doesn't say that it gives daze duration, but it does. So you give a little bit more stun and CC to your team to allow them to lock down targets. So you play a more aggressive oriented support. You're not really healing your allies too much, although you can, but mostly you're going for the aggressive and the mobility portions of a thief build to support with. So you're going to have energy cleansing on your short bow. You can actually take a sword with this build instead of a dagger, but I feel that Shadow Arts doesn't really flow too well with swords, so I go with dagger. And you're going to be taking the Merciful Ambush trait, which is going to give you stealth whenever you press F on a downstate body. So you're going to be able to res people in stealth, and you're going to revive them faster when you do that. So that's pretty much the idea, is giving your allies stealth when they go down and then reviving them using blinds and stuff like that. So where do you get the healing on this build? So whenever you stealth someone, you will heal them 255 every second. So you can give them like a smoke screen, and then you can blast that with your short bow too. Or you can just blinding powder them in your black powder. There's a lot of ways to use smoke fields and blasts to give stealth to your allies, and that'll heal them while they're in stealth. Then whenever you port to a target, you will heal all nearby allies at the location that you port to. So you have your shadow shot and you have your swipe, which will heal your allies while you are being aggressive on your target. And this is pretty nice because you don't really have to think about healing them. You just kind of have to focus their target with them, and you're already supporting them. Then you also have Cloaked in Shadow. So this build has blinds to peel for its allies while also doing a little bit of damage with Life Siphon. And what's nice is that the Life Siphoning doesn't scale with precision or ferocity. So the fact that you're basically a Menders amulet gives you similar damage to a normal thief build. So you can do a lot of blinds with this build, and that'll help you to get the kill as well. You'll give out a lot of boons to your allies as well because of the trickery trait line, and you can interrupt with skills such as the headshot. You can use Bountiful Theft to remove stability from enemies and steal to them, which will give them daze and interrupt stuff. You also have your Shortbow Forward, which will interrupt, and your Basilisk Venom, which you can share to allies, and you can stagger the Basilisk Venom usage to get really long stuns. So then you have Daredevil, which is going to give you a lot of mobility. So what's really important is that this is a support build that can keep up with the movement of the enemy. So usually I said that a roamer can play around a support by just rotating around it. Well, this is a support build that you can't rotate around because it's the fastest, in the game. It is the thief. So the dash gives you pretty much the mobility to be at the right place at the right time, and though your support may not be the best, it'll be there on time. And then you also have Pulmonary Impact, which with all of your other CCs can do a lot of damage because it doesn't scale up with precision, just like the Cloaked in Shadow trait. So it's actually pretty good with Mender Amulet, and whenever you interrupt someone, you will give them Pulmonary Impact, so that is pretty good. You also have a little bit of Condition Cleanse for your allies with the Signet of Agility, which will remove 3 conditions from nearby allies. So it's not really heavy on the Condition Cleanse, but it is there. So in this match, I start out immediately by giving Basilisk Venom and stealthing my team with the Black Powder and Cluster Bomb. And I'm going to try to make an aggressive push on the enemy Scourge because they're in the back. My Revenant and I are going to chase this Scourge together. And even though I'm a support, I can still interrupt the heal skill. I can still cleanse the Revenant so that they can pretty much go ham. And yeah, we can get this kill. I'll stomp it so that, their support don't come back and get the res. And then we can push into mid together. So I noticed that my Necro is in down state here, so they basically focused my Necro while we focus theirs. I put down my smoke screen and I start rezzing, and the enemy Renegade can't do anything against that because it's projectile block. So at this point, I am going to try to focus the enemy Renegade. I put down some smoke, and I'm going to save my steel for the kill, but I don't really need to. I'm going to use it to, yeah, probably interrupt this Necro's heal or something. So yeah, as soon as we get that kill, I'm actually going to go into mid because I realize that my team is kind of not really going for nodes in this game. So I'm going to try to play support by going for a little bit more node capturing. But I see that my teammate needs a little bit help here down here because yeah, the Renegade that we just killed just got revived by their support Guardian. And even though my Guardian had a lot of cleave, it wasn't enough. And now we're in a kind of a bad situation because now they have a DPS and a support here versus like a not so heavy support. But we're now 3v2ing. So I put down my smoke screen and I'm trying to get my team to focus a single target. They're kind of not really focusing the same target. So like the Guardian is on their Renegade and then the Necro is on their Guardian. So I should have targeted for them there, but I didn't. We get the kill on the Guardian anyways, and I'm going to rotate out to far because I see that my Revenant is not only alone for quite a while, or outnumbered, but they're also really low. So I go to stealth my Revenant here, and get the res on them. I cleanse right before the res finishes because I want to make sure that none of the Condis tick and prevent me from getting that res. It's also really good to remove like poison from downstate bodies because poison will slow down how fast you're rezzing. So you want to be using Signet of Agility usually during a res play like that. And here we're just in a 3 or 2v4, and I actually stay behind to get the decap because I know that there's really not much I can do to prevent my team from getting snowballed in a 2v4. I do try to go for the res there, but I'm a bit late. And I see that the enemy Renegade is really low, so I spam some headshots on them so that they can't get their heals off, and I share Basilisk Venom to my team so that we can secure this kill. So now that this is down, I am being careful and just putting down my choking gas, which puts poison on their downstate bodies, which will prevent them from being rezzed as well. And my teammate goes down here, so I stealth them and revive. And now we're just rolling kills into mid. So now that we've got that kill, we need to try to kill their support Guardian. I mean, we own the node right now, so we don't really need to do it, but I just want to make sure that we can kill their support because we own 2 nodes anyways, and we don't really need to go for the third because we don't. I'm noticing that we don't really have the aggressive potential to do that. So yeah, we're kind of split up here. We're not really focusing a target very well, so I am trying to refocus our team while also supporting my Guardian there. As you can see, they're in stealth right at like 5% HP, so I allow them to basically get out without being focused because stealth is really good because it de-targets the enemy. So in a way, you can peel for your team by stealthing them, which is really nice. And we're going for this res here. I put down some choking gas to interrupt the enemy. I have the stolen ability from the Necromancer, which is a fear, so I can use that as well to CC to peel for my team. And I'm going to share Basilisk Venom here to my team, probably. Yeah, I give out the Basilisk Venom and we can interrupt this Necromancer's heal, which is really good. But the enemy Guardian comes in and uses their Signet res, which allows them to get the Renegade back up, and that's unfortunate because I used the steel to interrupt the Necromancer's heal, and I could have interrupted that if I had my steel up. Because the Guardian had Aegis, so I needed to headshot it twice, and they probably would have stability anyways, because they just came off respawn. But yeah, we're going to get the kill on that Guardian anyways, and I'm going to get the decap at far. So after getting the decap at far, I don't want to be 1v1ing the enemy Necro, but I am kind of like trying to tell my team that, hey, you should come in here and kill this guy because we want to have this node. So we end up actually losing mid for some reason, but I can't really do anything about that because I'm at far and I don't want to be, I already didn't want to be 1v1 at far, so if I leave far to go to mid, then I'll be in another 1v1. So now that my Necro is here, I do want to stay here and support them and help them to get kills. So my team goes into home. They're like 3v2ing there, and my Necro is going to be 1v3'd now while I decap mid. So this is a bad situation. If my Necro survives long enough for me to get back and res them, then it's good. But I don't really expect that because I basically condemned them to death by leaving them in a 1v3. But they are doing a pretty decent job of surviving, as you can see there. They go into Shroud at the last second, and I try to make it in time to, you know, somewhat maybe res them or stealth them, but I'm a little bit late. So what I should have done there was decapped middle instead of full capping it, and then go to help my Necro at far. But I greeted for the node and I got punished for it because now I am alone. I could have had a Necro here to help me do damage, or, you know, someone to support, but instead I am now alone. But of course, that's not without trade-offs. We now have mid, and the enemy team didn't snowball out because I did that. So it could have been a good play, it could have been a bad play. Can't really use hindsight here. But I am trying to support my Revenant here by trying to stealth them, but I get taunted, and I see that I'm getting focused by both their Necromancers, so I'm trying to kite and just survive. If I get aggro of the enemy team and they're attacking me, well then that's good because they're not attacking my team. However, my Revenant does die still because they re-target to my Revenant while I was kiting away, so that was kind of a bad kite from me, to be honest. Should have stayed a little bit closer to my team and played a little bit more risky. However, we are now in a 2v2 with my Guardian, and we get the enemy Scourge down because I just spam headshot on them and get interrupts on them while also giving pulmonary impact. We decide, instead of going into far, because we know that the enemy Scourge is just going to respawn, and by the time we get the kill on the other Necromancer, he's just going to be back. So we know that it's probably better to go into mid and just snowball there rather than go into far, because we're kind of out of cooldowns there. So I get the kill on their Renegade at mid instead, and from that I'm going to go into far probably. I get the Immobilize on their Necro, and yeah, I'm just zoning the enemy Necro now. I see that they're respawning now, so I go back into mid and I try to help my Revenant get the kill there. I do see that the Renegade gets rezzed again by the enemy support Guardian, so I maybe should have stomped that there, but I assumed that maybe my Revenant or my Necro that was on mid would have watched that body. So a lot of mistakes being made, but now that we're in this kind of situation, I want to focus the Guardian most likely, because the Renegade, while it does do a lot of damage, I can prevent them from doing damage using my smoke screen here. So we're just pressuring the Guardian here, and they're really low. I'm going to steal into them while they have a lot of their boons up to remove them and just interrupt them. Now we've got a down and we're in a 2v3, so I have to be very careful. And now a fourth enemy comes in, and I'm just trying to stall as long as possible by interrupting with choking gas and with steel, but my allied Necromancer goes down and doesn't play around the situation, so this is going to be a lost fight. So my team doesn't get in time to, you know, reinforce the fight because, well, I can't really support that hard my Necromancer. And still, we're gonna come in here. I put a smoke screen on the node and some black powders probably, and I see that the enemy Scourge is probably a good target, so I get on that and I put down my black powder to prevent any counter pressure. And now I'm choking gas into the down body, but it's too late. So yeah, we lose this, but you can see that the support thief can still do a decent amount of healing and kill potential, even though it didn't work out in that situation. But yeah, that's how support thief works, and If you like this kind of content, give it a like and subscribe for more. Also check out the playlist of how to rotate in all roles. So if you like how to rotate as a support, I will also have a video on how to play all the other roles down below in the description. I'll see you next time.